Boo is lying in her bed, fast asleep, after a big day out. The closet door slowly opens. A figure walks quietly to the side of her bed. Boo can feel someone or something lurking over her bed. She slowly opens her eyes, and to her shock, she sees Mr. McCready standing over her bed. Silly Mr. McCready. He's looking for his daughter Wendy. Dan falls in the wrong room again.
Oh, my chest hurts.
It's all right. Boo kicks him out the window, onto the trampoline, and into a swimming pool. To understand any of that, you have to go back and watch our Super Dad episode to get that reference. Anyway, let's move on quickly. Let's get out of the castle. Let's go down into the dungeons. Let's go beneath the castle. Hi, I'm Michael.
I'm Rob.
I'm Damien.
Where do you go from there?
How do you follow that?
You can't. We should just end it right now.
That's it. Episode's done.
Well, this podcast is all about Disney. Each week we look at a different decade and choose a movie from that decade. But this episode, we are actually celebrating the 20th anniversary of Monsters, Inc.
Woo!
That's right. On this day, 20 years ago, Monsters, Inc. was released in cinemas. Can you guys believe that? 20 years ago.
No.
That's crazy.
I still remember watching that movie.
It's very
I remember most of what happens in that movie still.
Yeah. Well, before we get into our history, let's find out what the plot synopsis is. Damien?
The film centers on two monsters, James P. Sullivan and his one-eyed partner and best friend, Mike Wazowski, employed at the titular energy-producing factory Monsters, Inc., which generates power by scaring human children. However, the monster world believes that the children are toxic, and when one sneaks into the factory, that child must be returned home before it is too late.
Mm-hmm. Sounds pretty scary.
It is. It is pretty scary.
Yeah. So, obviously we've grown up with Monsters, Inc. But what is our history with this movie, Rob?
I can't believe that I was 9 years old when Monsters, Inc. came out. I still remember going to the movies to watch it with my dad, my mum, my brother, and my sister. I still remember. I know exactly where I was sitting as well. And I remember that I was scared of Randall. Randall creeped me out, and I loved that movie. The whole thing about it. And I remember all the Happy Meal toys as well. I remember getting the Boo Happy Meal toy as well. I loved it.
What's your history, Damien?
I like Rob, and probably like I'm going to say, I grew up with this movie from childhood. It was one of those, I watched it a lot growing up. So yeah, I've got a long history with it. Like I said before, I even remember the movie pretty well, which for me is a miracle.
Yeah.
How about you, Michael?
I mean, I'm the same, but I was a little bit older when it came out in 2001. But I was a big fan of, obviously, the Pixar movies that came out before this one. And yeah, I love this movie. It's great. It always reminded me a little bit of Our Real Monsters, which I really love that cartoon as well.
Yeah, it does. I didn't realize that.
Yeah, same sort of idea.
Hmm.
But before we talk about the movie, we should find out the history. It's time for a history lesson with Rob.
Yes. Okay. So so the idea for Monsters Inc. It was actually conceived in a lunch in 1994, attended by John Lasseter, the director of Toy Story 1, Toy Story 2, and Bugs Life, Pete Docter, who's the director of Monsters Inc., and Andrew Stanton, who's the director of Pixar's next movie, Finding Nemo. And this was all done during the production of Toy Story, Pixar's first movie. So, and this is also the first Pixar feature to not be directed by Lasseter, instead being held by Pete Docter, as well as Lee Unkrich and David Silverman, who served as co-directors. Even though this movie came out in 2001, the early test of Monsters Inc. was released on October 11, 1998. So even before Toy Story 2 was released. So Monsters Inc. Like what we know Monsters Inc. to be, it isn't what it actually was supposed to be. So Pete Docter's original idea featured a 30-year-old man dealing with monsters that he drew in a book as a child, coming back to scare him as an adult. And each monster represented a fear he had, and conquering these fears caused the monsters to eventually disappear. The idea, so originally it was only supposed to be Sully and Boo, but then they realized that he actually needed a buddy. So the idea of a monster buddy for the lead monster, it actually emerged at a story summit in Burbank, which is this term. It's actually like John Lasseter, he created it. It means basically to crash exercise that would yield a finished story in 2 days. So they finished fixing up the story and adding in Mike in 2 days.
That's unbelievable.
That's how quick it was.
That's insane.
Yeah.
You think it'd be a mess if they did that?
I know, right? You would think that it would be a mess, but it wasn't.
No.
Like, Mike's like a big part of the movie. He's not like a small, low-time character. Like, he's like equal screen time as Sully.
I know, right? And one fact about Mike: originally, Mike had no arms and had to use his legs as appendages. However, due to technical difficulties, arms were added to him. And I think he would have actually been a lot scarier if he had no arms.
Yeah.
And another fun fact about Mike. So Pete Docter named the character Mike for the father of his friend Frank Oz, who is a director and, well, obviously you guys already know this, who is a Muppet performer as well. And
Frank Oz.
I know, right? Good old Frank Oz doing everything good.
He's also a voice in this movie as well.
Who does he voice?
Fungus. Who is Randall's helper.
Oh, yeah. I did not know that was Frank Oz.
Mm-hmm.
And do you know how awesome? Do you know how Sully has all those hair follicles on him? They actually had to draw each and every single strand of hair. Do you want to know how many strands of hair there was?
No.
Well, too bad. You're going to find out right now. 2,320,413 pieces of hair are on Sully.
I actually was saying to Mike, so he's watching it the other night, and that's the scene I came in on, was a scene where you got a good shot of Sully's fur. And I was saying how, like, even after 20 years, that fur looks so damn amazing.
I know, right? Okay, so do you remember the scene in Harryhausen's restaurant where the decontamination scene happened. So it was originally the restaurant was originally supposed to be blown up, but due to the September 11 attacks, the explosion was replaced by a plasma dome. So they had to change it because of that. And
Okay.
did you guys know who was originally
It
supposed
was-
to?
I always kind of thought that's what happened under that dome anyway. It was just because it was a lot of people being sort of eliminated. They did a dome to make it more family friendly.
That's what they did for the sock. They got the little dome over the sock, and then they blew
Yeah.
it. So I assume that's what they did with the big one, right?
Yeah.
Pretty much. That's what they did.
You can contaminate the entire building, you erase it.
So did you guys know who was originally supposed to voice Sully?
No.
It was Bill Murray. Bill Murray, he actually screen tested for the role and was interested, but when Pete Docter was unable to make contact with him, he just took this basically as Bill Murray ghosting him and be like, I don't want anything to do with the role anymore.
Mm-hmm.
And the reason why Billy Crystal took the role of Mike Wazowski, so he took the role because he regretted turning down the role of Buzz Lightyear.
Silly.
I know, right? Yeah, but he got Monsters Inc.
But he doesn't suit Buzz Lightyear. Tim Allen suits Buzz Lightyear, and he suits Sully. So it all works.
But is that because, again, we've been watching Toy Story for 20 plus years with those characters, so it'd be wrong in our heads because we don't know any other option.
I mean, that's one way of looking at it. But I think
No, I think it was perfect.
it's perfect. Yeah.
Yeah,
It was perfect.
it's perfect
I think
casting.
every choice they've made was perfect.
Yeah.
And that's it for the history of Monsters Inc.
All right. Thank you for that history lesson, Rob. And I guess now it's time to talk about the movie.
Mm-hmm.
Once upon a time, there was a movie called Monsters Inc. All right, and we start off the movie with a bit of a jazzy song. Well, after we get this nice little jazzy song, we have a monster creeping into a room to scare a child. But then it's revealed that this actually is just a practice, and the monsters practice to scare children. And what happens with this monster? Damien?
He's clumsy and he falls over and gets I forgot what they called. What are they called? Those toys lodged somewhere.
Yeah, on his back, I
Or
guess.
something.
Yeah, on his back, on his lower back.
So this is sort of where we find out as well that he leaves the door open to the room,
You never do that.
and that's a big no-no in the monster world. And why is that a big no-no?
Doesn't he like get a little bitty human through the door? And if you get touched by a human, you die.
You die because they are toxic. And the reason is why they go into these rooms to scare the children is because screams equal power. So basically, they get the screams for the children into these containers, and they use that to power the city. We care. We scare because we care is the motto. So we have Sully who works there, who is the best scarer.
Mm-hmm.
He gets employee of the month every month. And you also have his best friend Mike, who works with him. So when you have your scarer, and then what's his job? He's like the sidekick.
He's like the assistant.
Yeah. So
Who records everything.
He does all like the geeky techie stuff, sets everything up and has it all ready to go. So like Scott doesn't have to worry about doing any other hard work. He just goes in and scares.
Yeah. So after we see the scene, we go to Sully at home, and Mike, and then we have them going through this city, and we kind of get a good feel of what this monster city is like, which I kind of like. It kind of expanded on this world pretty quickly into this movie. So you're not just in the factory or the business the whole movie. You actually get to see a wide sort of world that's created, which makes this world feel big. This is good. I think this sets up everything really well. And I guess once we've done that, then they go to their work. And this is sort of where we meet all of the characters. So we meet the two nerdy monsters.
Who were they voiced by? I cannot put my finger on it.
Damien, look it up.
Anyway, yeah, I really like those characters. Those characters also appear in Monsters at Work, don't they?
They do, yeah.
Yeah, I thought so.
They're really good at that as well. Then we meet Celia, who's voiced by Jennifer Tilly.
So it's one person.
Yeah.
It is Daniel Robert Gearson.
Who else does he voice? He voices other characters that I know.
Now, if anyone has a good voice...
Oh, he wrote Monsters, Inc.
Oh.
He wrote Monsters, Inc.?
Gearson described writing his first film, Monsters, Inc., as a highly collaborative process.
Wow. Well, hats off to him.
Nice.
Very nice.
He also wrote Monsters University.
Too bad.
And because it's, I guess, too then.
Wait, if he wrote Monsters University as well, then why did he contradict that thing about them meeting?
Yeah.
Like
it took 7 years it took 7 years.
Did he forget what he wrote in the first one?
Possibly.
Because there's a contradiction, right, Rob?
Yeah.
What is it? Do you want me to say what the contradiction is?
Yes.
Okay, so in Monsters Inc., when they're walking down Monstropolis, Mike says that him and Sully have known each other since they were 4 years old. But in Monsters University, Mike meets Sully for the first time, and they're obviously not 4 years old.
Yes.
Yeah, so that's the big contradiction. That's like one of the big issues that I have with Monsters University. Not Monsters Inc.
Yes.
Monsters Inc. is just great. That's a problem that I have with Monsters University.
Monsters University is very disappointing when you put it up against Monsters Inc.
Yeah.
And as I said to you earlier, I don't put it canon with this movie. I put Monsters at Work with this movie because that is just as good. Or almost as good. Maybe not as good as this movie, but it's very close.
Yeah.
And as I was saying, Jennifer Tilly is the voice for Celia. And if anyone's a great voice actress, it's Jennifer Tilly, right?
Yes, she's fantastic.
So good. It's natural.
Yeah. It's like her voice is so good. It almost sounds like she voices all her characters exactly the same.
She doesn't need to change her voice because she's got a great cartoon voice.
Yeah.
She is the voice.
Exactly. But then we meet the enemy of this story, Randall, who's voiced by Steve Buscemi.
Yeah. Buscemi, one of them.
I think I've heard it both ways.
Yeah, and he's great as the bad guy. He's actually really creepy in this movie. And I don't know what it is.
Thing is, I think Buscemi has a voice that can kind of be made to sound creepy. He's in Con Air, and he fits the character he plays.
Isn't his name in Con Air Mr. McCready?
I know I was 9, but still, it scared me. And even as an adult, and I just rewatched it last night, I was still a little bit scared of Randall. He still scared me a little bit.
Yeah, he's got this creepy movement to him. He's like a lizard, and he's got this weird. And then he can go invisible as well, so you don't know where he is. That's really creepy.
Yes.
And then after this, we meet Roz.
Mike Wazowski. You forgot to file your paperwork again.
This is what's great about this movie. Every character is good.
Yeah.
Every character we meet is like, oh, this character's awesome. One after another. And her hatred for Mike is just so good.
Yeah, I was just gonna say, she's like the epitome of like that, the most hated boss in every office, channeled into one character.
Well, now we go into we get a look at the door system. And we see how it all works, and the sort of what do you call those things they're on? They're on the
Conveyor system.
Yeah, it's like a conveyor system. Yeah.
So they're up high and they come across, and then they lower down, and then they lock in, and then when the light goes on, you can go in, and then it's a portal to someone's closet. So then you sort of get an idea of the monsters who go into the doors and the monsters who help out, and how that all works. And so they're going in, they're going doing the screams, and Sully, he's just getting them all, and Randall's jealous because he wants to be the best, but he's not. Sully's the best. And this is where the monster George, he goes in. He goes into to scare the kid, and then he comes out. And what happens, Damien?
First he comes down, he's like, it's just another good day of scaring, I'm feeling good. Turns around to walk out, and his assistant's like, it's 2319! Only 2319! And Rob, would you mind telling us when 2319 is?
Okay, this isn't confirmed. This is just a fan theory, but I think it might actually be true because so it is a sock. So it's a white sock on the back on George's back. So the 23rd letter of the alphabet is W, and the 19th letter of the alphabet is S. W S. White sock.
White sock.
Mind blown.
This sort of is the official code for the CDA, the Child Detection Agency. For whenever a monster has any kind of human item on their person. And they come in like, this is like ground zero to the end of the world. And they full like mini detonate the object. They full decontaminate, shaving all his fur off and everything. They put him in like a collar, so he can't like scratch it himself. Like full over the top for a single sock.
Yeah, that's great. That sort of sets up how these monsters feel about any items that come out of the human world. They're petrified of all this stuff.
Insta-death.
Like, these monsters are so scared of our world.
And yet they're there to scare children.
Yes.
That's their job.
That's their job. They don't want to do it. They have to do it. They scare because they care. So basically, Sully's the best that day again. He's wrecked it up, and they all going home. And then Roz tells Mike he hasn't filed his papers, but he's got a big date with Celia. And Sully says, "Well, I'll stay back and I'll do it for you, and you go off to your date." And so he goes off. Mike goes off, and Sully stays back. And this is where he comes back into the room, and there's one door still there.
So yeah, he sees the door there after hours, and there shouldn't be anyone on the scare floor anymore because safety and security and all that stuff. There's times they can be scary. And so he kind of he looks around to make sure that there's anyone there sort of working, and so he goes into the door to check if there's any monsters inside scary. Because he's like, I gotta send the door back, but I don't want to send it back if there's a monster in here. And there's no one in there. There's no human. There's no monster. And then he comes out, and he hears this thump, thump. And he looks down, and there's a wee little human playing with his tail. And this is where we meet for the first time the character that will become known as Boo.
Boo! Yeah.
She's so adorable.
Fun fact about the voice actor for Boo. They actually couldn't get her to stay still, so they were just chasing her around with the microphone while she was making all these noises.
Really?
She was 4 years old or something.
Sorry?
She was 4 years old or something, the
Yeah.
kid.
Yeah. That's what they were doing. They were just chasing her around with the microphone, recording her making the noises.
I think Randall came back, discovered that the door, there was no child in the door, and then sent the door back into its storage. And Sully kind of freaked and shoves Boo into a duffel bag, a work duffel bag.
That's right. Yeah.
But I think Sully kind of assumed that Randall was trying to up his scream count, so he could claim, because there's an overall best scarer kind of thing happening.
Sully goes to the restaurant where Mike is with Celia. They're at a it's kind of like a sushi restaurant, isn't it?
Harryhausen's.
It's what?
Harryhausen's. The
It's
most
a Japanese restaurant?
Huh?
It's Japanese, isn't it?
Oh yeah, I guess it's Japanese.
Yeah, it's Japanese, yeah.
It's like an octopus monster.
Cooking fish things.
This is where Sully's trying to tell Mike that what's happened, and then Boo doesn't stay where she's meant to stay and causes havoc in this restaurant. But Boo's not scared of any of these monsters at all. She's having a great time.
She's scared of one.
But he ain't there.
Well, she's scared of one. Yes, Randall, but because Randall's her monster. Who's not scared of Randall?
Yeah.
But she's having a great time in the restaurant. She's not scared of any of those monsters. And so then the agency comes down again because of what's happened.
Because why, Damien? What happens?
There's but it's not 2319 this time, because it wasn't an object, it was an actual child, which I would assume would be like a code red 5, level 5, whatever the doomsday warning level is. Effectively, that's what this is. A human child, for the first time in Monsters history, has entered their world. So yeah, they kind of go crazy.
Yeah, but
To put it lightly.
the Mike and Boo, Mike, Boo, and Sully, they actually get out before they get captured by the
But not Celia.
the CDA. Not Celia, no. She gets caught and taken. Unfortunately.
Taken to a black site and interrogated.
To a what?
To a black site where she gets interrogated.
And so they take Boo back to their apartment. So Sully and Mike are freaking out, and they don't know what to do with Boo. So what they decide is they're going to sneak her back in to the company, and they're going to find a door and put her in the door and forget it ever happened. No one has to know. It can be their little secret. everything goes back to normal. So that's their big plan. So they dress her up in like this little monster suit.
Which makes her even cuter.
It does.
Little monster.
She's so cute.
Yeah, so they're back into the company, and they're wanting to find this door, and Celio's not happy with Mike at all.
Mm.
She full names him Michael Wazowski.
Yes.
Her and her hair are not happy.
Oh yes. Snake hair is not happy. So I guess they sort of split up a bit here. So Sully's with Boo, and then he loses Boo. And Boo goes off with a bunch of actual monster kids who are
Before that happens, though, because Sully gets distracted by a couple of the CDA guys that are like flooding their work site because they managed to trace it back there because they found the duffel bag.
yeah.
These two like guys come up and like ask for Sully's interview autograph because he's like been all over the papers and number one scarer. And Boo climbs into a trash chute. It's like a bin, which then gets dumped. So Sully thinks Boo has got into the trash system.
Yeah.
And then we're shown like after that she's okay and alive and like still into a group of kids.
Yeah,
But Sully thinks Boo went through the trash system.
Because one of her eyeballs from her costume
Yeah.
comes off into the trash, and he sees the eyeball, and he sees it go down into trash chute. And then you see him in the trash compactor area or whatever, and you see it's like all that big machine gets smashing up all
five
the
stages.
and
It's just like
he's like fainting and
every time he stands up and he sees it again, fucked up every time.
Here, like this point is where you can see that Sully is starting to form an attachment to Boo.
Yeah.
Because he shouldn't care. Like the problem's solved, really. Because he's like, I can still hear her. And he listens to the block and hears her going, Mike Wazowski!
Yeah.
Also, fun fact, the teacher of the children, her name is Miss Nesbitt. That is the credit she's given for the movie. Which is a reference to Toy Story and Buzz getting very much tea affected.
I'm Mrs. Nesbitt.
Right, it's a reference.
Yeah.
Cool.
One of many references in this movie to other Pixar works.
There's a few, yeah.
Yeah, the part earlier where Mike was like, I'm gonna get the key card, don't worry about it, I'll get the key card. And he tries to get the key card from Raz, but she won't give it to him because somebody forgot to file their paperwork again. So he just like nicks some key card from one of the folders that have the door stuff and tries to scan it. And the door comes out, and he's like, all right, let's put her back where she came from. And so he's like, that's not her door. And Mike's like, just put that thing back where it came from. Also, help me. And everyone has stopped to look at them. And he's like, oh, we're working on a company play. It's called Put That Thing Back Where It Came From. Also, help me. And that's what gets Randall off. So like, as soon as they leave out there, Randall like corners Mike.
Yeah, so Randall takes Mike, thinking it's Boo. So Sully and Boo, they follow him, and they find they follow him around the corner, and then he's not there anymore. And Boo finds a secret compartment.
Good job, Boo.
Yay! And so they open it and they go in, and I guess they go. Well, how would you describe this area? It's like a laboratory or basement of some
The
kind.
maintenance corridors, have maintenance areas.
Yeah. And Randall has a machine down there, and he has Mike on one of his chairs in front of this machine. And there's a machine. It sucks out screams.
It's the screen extractor.
Yeah, scream extractor. Yeah, exactly.
So what happens is he starts to, the machine. He gets it going. It goes over to Mike. It's about to start sucking like the extract screams from
Yeah.
Mike, but then it randomly just stops working. Just stops working, and then he was like, "Oh, you have to fix it. You have to fix it," to his assistant. And then Randall notices that something's up with the plug, so he goes, and then he follows it, and then he sees that it's been unplugged.
Yeah.
So he plugs
And
it back in. He plugs it back in, and then he goes back, and then he notices that it's his assistant who's getting the screams extracted from him. And then he goes, "What happened?" Sully and Boo broke out Mike. And then
There's also some line just before that where as the thing's coming from Mike, he pleads with him to like help get him out, help him get out of here. And he's like, "I'm sorry, but I was told not to fraternize with victims of his evil plan."
So this is where the boss wants Sully to demonstrate, I guess, his scare tactics in front of some monsters in training, right? And he's sort of been he's been asking him to do this throughout the movie, kind of thing. And so he's sort of, I guess, he kind of corners him to do it now. And
I think Sully kind of went there to tell Mr. Waterhouse, who is in charge of Monster Inc., about Sully about Randall's plan. But he can't get it out because Mr. Waterhouse can focus on one thing, and that is training these new, very bad rookie scarers.
Yeah. So it's the same setup from the start of the movie. It's the training room with the robot child, and Sully kind of does it to try to, I guess, move on. And when he scares the robot child, he doesn't realize that Boo has come up next to the robot child, and he scares Boo.
That break my heart.
Even still, it breaks my heart.
It's a hard scene to watch.
Like the animators did such a great job of showing the actual pain of a child on her face. They managed to tug the heartstrings, and it's an animated movie.
You can see like the fear in her eyes.
Yeah. And then you can also see the remorse in Scully's face when he realizes as well.
Yeah. And that's sort of when he sort of realizes, and he sees he on the monitors, he sees his face and Boo's face, and how he's really scared her, and I guess he's sort of at that really questioning everything that he's done up into that point.
He's having an existential crisis right now at that moment.
He did, yeah. And such a great scene. And so this is where the boss finds out about Boo and what they've been doing, and you think he's going to help them, but he does not. He finds a door. They think he's going to put Boo back into this door, but then they're like, "This isn't Boo's door," and
I know.
Yeah,
it's yours. Long live the king.
Well, then we see Randall come, because he's been invisible, and he comes out, and then they get thrown through the door. and
The
they,
door gets shredded. There's two, I think, after that.
hey,
They also shred the door, so they can't come back through.
yeah. So they've been banished, basically. And whereabouts are they? Where do they land?
They land in the Himalayas with the abominable snowman.
he's another monster that was banished a long time ago. What's he made him? Little like
Snow cones.
snow cones, but yellow.
Which are yellow.
Hello. But it's okay, it's lemon.
Lemon. And then later on he says, I'll go outside and make more snow cones. Yeah, Sully has one mission is to get back to Boo because what they're gonna do to her. So he goes back to the village and he gets back pretty quickly, really.
I mean, he does take a toboggan and ride it down a mountain face.
That's true.
Because it's supposed to be the what's his name? Abominable Snowman says it's a 3-day hike to get to the nearest village.
Yeah.
And Sully's just like, ain't got time for that.
But he does get back. And he's just in time to save Boo from the Scream extractor. And then he gets into a fight with Randall. And this is pretty funny scene where he's fighting Randall and then Mike comes back. and Mike's talking to him. He's getting choked by Randall and getting beat up.
Invisible.
He's
So
invisible.
you can't see Randall because he's invisible.
Yeah, you can't see Randall.
I want to know is how did Mike get back so quickly?
I don't know. He
would have to have taken the exact same method that Sully did to get back.
Yeah, I don't know.
Well, remember, Mike is a lot smaller, so he
Maybe
could
he
get
just
back
goes
faster
down.
because less weight, quicker movement.
You just roll down the mountain.
Yeah.
Yeah, basically.
It's a big bouncy ball.
He bounced all the way back.
So they get into they're fighting, and then this is where they get on the doors, and this is pretty cool. Like I don't know, this really exciting scene where they're going through the doors and they're moving along the conveyor belts, and
kind of shows the scope of both the Monsters Inc. company and the animator skill, because there are like thousands of doors being moved around in one shot.
Yeah. And so they want to get to Boo's door. And they're sort of going through doors to get closer to her door.
Looney tuning it.
Say what?
Basically.
Looney tuning's it. You're going through one door, coming out a different door.
Yeah. And they go and sort of, you see them go through the doors, and they're in different countries, and
this is also where we learn, I think, the true power of a human laugh, because Mike makes Boo laugh, and every door in the entire place lights up.
Yeah.
Well, firstly, they go through a few different locations, a few different doors, but unfortunately, Randall kind of outsmarts them and gets ahead of them. But the problem is, Boo's not scared of Randall anymore.
Not at all.
She knocks him through a door, out of the shot. I believe he then ends up in the gator scene, which is him in a trailer in, I think, like Florida or something. And they're like, "Hey, Mom, there's a gator got in the house."
And you see him getting whacked.
She's excited with him. Like Randall getting his comeuppance for once.
So I guess they sort of they're talking to the boss, and they get him to confess that he will do anything to save his company. And
They tricked him into believing they had gone into Boo's room.
Yes.
And so he thought he was in a human's room.
Mm.
And so, Scully kind of like gets him to start talking and spill the beans about the plan that he had. Because he said in the start of the movie that he would do anything to protect the company that's been in his family for like 3 generations.
Mm.
He will
And he
kidnap
meant
1,000 kids.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, his plan is to kidnap kids, and then this is all recorded, and then this is where we get the reveal that Roz is actually working for the CDA.
I think she runs it.
Yeah,
Number one.
And she's a hidden or a secret agent, I guess.
She was like undercover.
Yeah, undercover to expose his plans. I like this. This is pretty cool. And I mean, this is sort of the coming up to the end of the movie, and then we sort of have to say goodbye to Boo. And this was a really really sad moment in the movie because we're going to say goodbye, and the door's going to get destroyed. And we haven't even mentioned that Boo has this like cute nickname for Sully this whole movie.
Kitty.
Kitty.
Kitty. Kitty. Kitty.
He's a big kitty. Yeah. So, yeah, this is a really sad scene. them saying goodbye, and then they shred the door.
There's a single chip left that Sully keeps.
Yeah, he keeps that, and he has a drawing that Boo did for him, of him and her. So yeah, so they're basically going to run the business now on laughter, because they've worked out that laughter is 10 times more powerful than screams. We're almost at the end, and then Mike wants to take Sully to show him something, and he has rebuilt Boo's door from all the pieces, and there's one little final piece to put together, and he puts his little chip into the door, and it lights up, and then he opens the door.
You hear Boo?
Yeah, kitty. And that's basically the end. All right, and they all lived happily ever after. And now it's time to rate this movie and find out how many dwarfs we give this out of 7. Damien?
Always start with me. I have to give it 7.
Oh my goodness, he's giving it 7.
I love this movie. I love Boo. I like Mike and Sully. I think they work so well together. I think they managed to make you feel something for an animated character.
Yeah.
It doesn't even look like fully like this is like the early days of Pixar where they're still getting the skin textures and stuff like that more realistic. So the characters do look a little less human than they do now.
Yeah.
And yet my heart like breaks for Boo.
Yeah,
So it has to be 7. I'd give it more if I could.
I knew it. I knew it was going to be 7, Rob. I knew it.
We all knew it was going to be a 7.
What do you give it, Rob?
Yeah, Rob?
Well, out of 7, I give it 7.
7!
Another 7! It's, like, it's faultless. I can't fault this movie one bit. No matter how many times I watch it, I will laugh, I will cry, I will just enjoy this movie. I'm speechless. And that's a first for me, being speechless.
It's speechless, but it's a lot of things.
What about you, Michael? What do you give it?
What do you give it?
I mean, I'm not really a fan of this movie. I have to give it a 2.
Guess we need a new host for the show.
Oh no, sorry, that's my review for Superdad. Are we talking about Monsters Inc?
Yes,
Yes.
Monsters Inc.
Monsters Inc. I give it out of 7. 7 out of
That's
7.
7!
We need an audio file that's just like fireworks and confetti going off and stuff. This moment.
That's 3 7s. That's our first 7.
Lucky sevens.
I mean, yeah, I was same as you guys. This movie's flawless. It's perfect script. Characters are great. Voice acting is great. You can't fault it. You know, you fall in love with Boo and Sully and Mike and
Even Roz, she's awesome too.
even the characters that only have a few scenes shine in those scenes that they're in.
Like George.
George, yeah, and Roz. So yeah, this is just one of those movies that is great, and I recommend it to anyone who hasn't seen it. I'm sure most people have seen it, but yes, 7, and that's it.
Decide when 20 years after being released, you enjoy it just as much as an adult as you did when you were a child or a teenager.
Yeah,
It's decided that this movie will be good forever.
I would recommend also go into Disney Plus. You're not sponsored, and go in and watching Monsters at Work.
Yes, that is a great follow-up.
It's a good follow-up.
Just those two. There are no other things you need to watch. It's just those two.
Yes. There's no prequels that you need to see.
No, nothing.
You can find us on Facebook at Beneath the Castle. Please go to soundcloud.com/Beneath the Castle, or you can find us on Spotify and listen to the show. Or if you not only want to listen to us, you want to see us as well, you can go to our YouTube page, Beneath the Castle. And remember, we have new episodes every Monday morning at 10 a.m. That's exciting. But this one...
Australian time. Sydney, Australia time.
Yes, in the Australia time.
Daylight saving time.
Exactly. But this one is dropping on the actual date that the anniversary is. So it'll be on the Tuesday. So you get 2 episodes this week. Lucky you guys.
Which would technically be a Monday in the US?
Maybe.
Yeah, but it's the anniversary for us, so it doesn't matter.
That's our anniversary.
Well, that's the end of the show. Thanks for listening or watching. And remember, growing old is mandatory, but growing up is optional. Goodbye.
Laters.
Bye-bye.